Hey everyone, welcome back to Corporate Decoder, the place where we decode the corporate world. Today we're diving into ContextLogic's latest quarterly report, or Form 10Q. This one's got a twist because after a major asset sale, ContextLogic is basically figuring out what's next. It's like watching a company try to reinvent itself. Will they pull it off, or is this the beginning of the end? Let's find out. All ed I forward off die kelv after bekende egg efter vind in the description below for other documents. Make sure you're subscribed. We also have a Discord community linked in the description below for even more discussions. First off, a quick note. Like all these reports, there are what they call forward-looking statements. Basically, anything in this report that isn't a stone-cold fact is just the company's best guess about the future, and those guesses could be wrong. So keep that in mind. Now let's jump into the financials, the real meat of this report. We're going to look at 3 months ended March 31st, so the first quarter of 2025. Let's kick this off. Cash and cash equivalents is at $64 million compared to $66 million at the end of last year. It's not a huge change, but it's a decrease. Keep that in mind as you assess the company later. Okay, let's look at marketable securities. Hedger securities increased to $158 million compared to $83 million at the end of last year. They've increased their position by almost double. Seems that they are keeping the money in the short term. Next up, total current liabilities were at $3 million compared to $5 million at the end of last year. At least they are taking care of short-term debts. Then there is this adjustments attributable to redeemable non-controlling interest, which is a loss of $3 million. While this item did not exist last year, we will talk about this item later. Now, the big one, net loss per share attributable to common stockholders comes in at negative 27 cents. Last year, this was negative $2.43, so they have improved this metric greatly. Good job. Also keep in mind the net loss attributable to common stockholders this year, it's negative $7 million while it was negative $59 million last year. It shows that the company has greatly improved, whether it is due to the asset sale or better management. It's hard to say at this point, so let's read on. And finally, net loss is at $4 million negative, while net loss last year was $59 million. Again, a great improvement. It seems the financial position has improved drastically, but we should keep in mind that the source of the money comes from the sale of assets. So they're sitting on cash rather than increasing sales. So this cash is not an infinite resource, and we should consider that when evaluating the company. Switching over to cash flow, we see that purchases of marketable securities are $158 million. Well, last year they weren't purchasing marketable securities. Next, let's see how much they got paid back. Turns out they had $83 million from the maturity of marketable securities this year and $90 million last year. This seems to be their primary money management strategy. They have a cash inflow of $72 million due to proceeds from issuance of redeemable convertible preferred units, whatever those are. While this item did not exist in the books last year, it seems this is their way of getting money and will be relevant for a later scroll tag where we'll discuss the adjustment they had to make due to this. For reference, the cash and cash equivalents at end of period is $65 million. While it was $250 million last year, this is in agreement with previously seen data. Here's the big change because of the asset sale. The company no longer has revenue as it has no marketplace and logistics operations. That means all those improvements we just saw on the books are entirely due to money management after the sale. This is more of a liquidation company than an operation. Alright, let's talk about that redeemable non-controlling interest item. It turns out they issued what they call preferred units to an investor for $75 million. And here's the catch, the investor can force the company to buy back those units under certain conditions, particularly if ContextLogic doesn't make an acquisition by a certain date. This is not common equity, it's something in between. The details are complex, but what's important is this creates a big obligation on the company. So at the end of March of this year, the redeemable non-controlling interest is valued at $75 million. This factors in something called accretion, which is just an accounting term for how the value of the redemption grows over time. And to balance the books, this is a $3 million hit to the company. Let's look at the lawsuits they are facing. It involves their IPO registration and allegations of false statements. The key takeaway is that these cases have been dismissed, but the plaintiffs are appealing the judgment. The company is fighting it, but it's impossible to know the potential cost at this stage. As a side note, for more recent reports, they had to restate items such as description of leases. They currently have around $65 million of cash and cash equivalents and $158 million in government-backed marketable securities. This should be enough for at least the next 12 months, but it's important to note that without revenue, they are relying entirely on that existing pile of cash. Speaking of executives, here's the detail of the payment of the CEO. He was awarded a chunk of Class P units in Holdings, which is the subsidiary. Again, this is stock-based compensation, so not an immediate cash drain, but definitely something that impacts the real value. Alright, let's talk about accounting rules, accounting pronouncements, which doesn't have any impact to them at least. But if you are an accountant, this section will be useful, or if you want to become one. Now, my take on this company after reading this filing. ContextLogic is in a weird spot. They sold off their main business, they are sitting on cash, and they are trying to figure out what to do next. The good is that they are sitting on a pile of cash, and it seems their legal risks, the lawsuit, are getting better. A major red flag is that redeemable non-controlling interest. If they fail to do an acquisition in the future, the investor will have a way out with a guaranteed return, and there is that looming date. With that, there is the big risk of failing to get on track or even delisting as a public company. There also haven't been any plans for new sources of revenue that they have successfully tried to get on, which also raises the question of what that giant pile of cash will be used for, or if it will be used at all. If they play their cards right, they could turn this into a turnaround story. However, the clock is ticking and management needs to make some smart moves to avoid becoming another cautionary tale. Alright, that's our breakdown of ContextLogic's latest filing. What's your take on these numbers and what they signal for the company's future? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If this analysis was valuable, hitting that like button really helps, and subscribe for more deep dives. Don't forget to check out the Discord in the description for more. Thanks for watching, see you next time.